students, and welcome to the second lecture on hydrogen atom. Here is a summary of what we have done in our last class. We have seen that for hydrogen atom we can define a complete set of commuting observables in the form of H operator, L square operator and the Lz operator. These are the operators for the energy, the orbital angular momentum magnitude square and the Z component of the orbital angular momentum. Since these three operators commute, it means they can be measured simultaneously and they have common eigenfunctions or eigenkets which we denote as NLM kets. And we have these three eigenvalue equations for the Hamiltonian, L square operator and the Lz operator. And these are the values for the quantum numbers n, l and m. We see that for a given value of n, there are different L and M values available. It means there are different NLM states, but all these states have the same energy, as energy only depends on the n quantum number. This means that the energy in this system is degenerate, and the degeneracy is of the order n square. We have to remember that we are not considering spin jet. Here is the energy level diagram we worked out in our last class. The ground state is 100. We denote it as 1s. S means that L is equal to 0. Similarly, over here 200 state is denoted as 2s and 21m states are denoted collectively as 2p. P means that L is equal to 1 and we remember that m has 3 values over here. Similarly, over here D stands for L is equal to 2 and m will have 5 values over here. We can compare this model with the much simpler Bohr atomic model, which doesn't have the structure due to L and M quantum numbers and is only able to show the gross features, is only able to explain the gross features of hydrogen atom spectrum. On the other hand, we have much refined Dirac equation, which correctly accounts for the spin of the electron and provides us these new quantum numbers and gives us a better understanding of the hydrogen atom spectrum. And this Dirac equation, solving the Dirac equation and understanding it can be final year project if anybody is interested. Here is the plan of the lecture. We will first briefly see what information we have in the NLM basis. We will see how we can visualize angular momentum of electron in hydrogen atom. We will look at the completeness and orthogonality relations for the NLM basis. Then we will look at postulate 4 of quantum mechanics. This is the postulate that allows us to calculate the probabilities of measurement outcomes. The version we have studied in our last semester cannot work with degenerate cases. So for hydrogen atom where energy is degenerate, we have to modify the postulate. We will see how it is modified. Lastly, we will look at the position space wave functions for the electron and see what we can tell about the position or orbital motion of the electron in hydrogen atom. So let's start with the information contained in NLM vectors. When we have an NLM vector, we know that the energy of the system is minus 13.6 electron volt divided by n square. The angular momentum magnitude square is L times L plus 1 h cut square and the Z component of the angular momentum is m h cut. All this comes from the three eigenvalue equations we have just discussed. So as an example, if we have the ket 431, we can tell that its energy will be minus 13.6 electron volt divided by 16. Its orbital angular momentum magnitude square will be 4 times 3 12 h cut square and the Z component will be 1 h cut. As an exercise problem, try to work out the energy and angular momentum in these states as well as in this linear combination. For this linear combination, try to answer the question if the state is normalized and if it is not normalized, how you can normalize it. Here is the visual representation of the angular momentum of the electron. We keep on talking about the magnitude and Z component of the angular momentum, but we do not talk about the Lx and Ly component. This is because Lx and Ly, they are not part of the complete set of commuting observables because commutator of Lx with Lz is not equal to 0 and similarly the commutator of Ly with Lz is not equal to 0. It means that these are incompatible observables and they cannot be measured simultaneously. So if you only know about the one component of the angular momentum and its magnitude but not the other two components, you can represent it in the form of a cone as shown over here. In this top cone, the Z component is 2 h cut and the magnitude should be under root 6 h cut. Lx and Ly components are not known. In this lower cone, the Z component has reduced to 1 h cut and the magnitude remains the same. Over here, we see the Z component is 0 and the uncertainty in Lx and Ly written in the form of a circle. And similarly over here the z component is minus h cut and the here z component is minus 2h cut. Here we have the completeness and orthogonality relations for NLM vectors. Here we take the scalar product of NLM vector with n prime, l prime, m prime vector. This is equal to the product of three Kronecker deltas. The Kronecker delta over n prime, the Kronecker delta with l and l prime, and the Kronecker delta over m prime. It means the two states will be orthogonal if either m is not equal to m prime, or l is not equal to m prime, or n is not equal to m prime. The completeness relation is written over here. Over here is the outer product of NLM vector with itself. This is the projector which projects to the state NLM, and over here we have the summation over n going from 0 to infinity, summation of L going from 0 to up to n minus 1, and the summation over m from minus L to L. The sum of all these projectors should be equal to the identity operator. This is the completeness relation. Now let's recall the postulates we studied in our last semester taken from this book. The postulate 1 tells us that the state of the system is represented by a vector denoted as a ket vector. The postulate 2 tells us that the measurable quantities are represented by Hermitian operators. The postulate 3 tells us that the measurement results are the eigenvalues of the corresponding operator, and the postulate 4 tells us how to calculate the corresponding probabilities. For a discrete non-degenerate case, the postulate 4 is stated as follows. The probability of getting the eigenvalue an associated with the eigenvector un of the observable A in the normalized state psi is the scalar product of psi with un modulo square. Note that this postulate will not work if we have multiple states having the same eigenvalue. For example, let's ask the question, what is the probability of getting the energy value minus 3.4 electron volt for electron in the hydrogen atom? So we need to take the, in a given state psi, so we need to take the scalar product of psi with some vector and take the modulus square of that vector. But what should be the eigenvector over here? Should it be 210 or 211 or 21 minus 1 or 200? To answer this question, we need to modify the postulate 4. So the postulate 4 for discrete degenerate case is stated as follows. When the physical quantity A is measured on a system in normalized state psi, the probability of getting the eigenvalue An corresponding to the observable A is, the probability is equal to summation of I going from 1 to Gn uni psi scalar product mod square. Here Gn is the degree of degeneracy of An and U and I are the different eigenvectors having the same eigenvalue. These are the degenerate eigenvectors. We have labeled them by a new index I going from 1 to Gn. So this is a set of vectors which form the basis in the eigenspace En corresponding to the eigenvalue An of A. So what we have done, we have listed all the degenerate eigenvectors having the same eigenvalue, and when we wish to calculate the probability of that eigenvalue, we take the scalar product of all these degenerate eigenvectors with our given state psi, we take the modulus square and then we add them together to get our probability. And that's how we can answer the question we raised in the previous slide. So the probability to get the value minus 3.4 electron volt for the hydrogen atom in state psi will be following. The probability will be, over here we have 4 states which have the degenerate eigenvalue minus 3.4 electron volt, and the states are 200, 211, 21 minus 1 and 210. So we take the scalar product of 200 with psi, take its modulus square. We take the scalar product of 210 with psi, take modulus square. The scalar product of 211 with psi and its modulus square, and finally the scalar product of 21 minus 1 with psi and its modulus square, and then we add them together to get the probability of getting the result minus 3.4 electron volt in the energy measurement of hydrogen atom. Here are a few exercise problems to work out to practice the concepts we have learned. So in exercise 3 we are given a superposition of these NLM vectors, and you have to work out the constant C such that the state psi become normalized. So we already know that state 210, 31 minus 1 and 420 are normalized, and you have to do some algebra and you have to work out the value for C for which the state psi will also be normalized. In exercise 4, you have to work out the possible outcomes and corresponding probabilities of energy and angular momentum measurements in the system when the system state is given over here in the exercise 3. So you take the same state, you consider energy measurement, you consider angular momentum measurement, you need to work out what are the possible outcomes, and you need to work out the corresponding probabilities. In exercise 5, you again consider the system in state psi and work out the expectation values and uncertainties in energy and angular momentum magnitude, z component of angular momentum measurements. Now we answer the question, what information do we have about the position of the electron around the nucleus? For this, we know we need to look at the position space wave function, and let's first recall the position space wave function in one-dimensional case. For a one-dimensional case, if we have the system ket psi, we can take its scalar product with position eigenvectors to get a function we call the wave function. For that wave function, the modulus square is called the probability density, and the probability density at some point x multiplied by a narrow strip dx is the probability of finding the particle at position x in that narrow strip dx. We can generalize this idea to 3 dimensions. So we consider the NLM vectors and take this scalar product with xyz vectors. These xyz vectors are the eigenvectors of position operator in 3 dimensions. So in 3-dimensional space, you consider all the possible positions where a particle can be, and you associate a vector, eigenvector with that position. So in this way, you have a set of all these xyz vectors, and you take the scalar product with this NLM basis, you will get a number for each coordinate, xyz coordinate in your 3-dimensional space. And in this manner, you get a function, a wave function in 3 dimensions. We call it 3-dimensional wave function psi of xyz. And then we put the labels NLM over here to remind ourselves that this wave function corresponds to the quantum numbers NLM. We can now take psi NLM of x, y, z mod square to be the probability density in 3 dimensions, and this probability density times a volume element dV will be the probability of finding the particle at the position xyz in a small volume element dV. You must appreciate that this picture is very different from Bohr atomic model, in which the electrons are moving around the nucleus in fixed orbits. Finally, since the Coulomb potential we are dealing with in hydrogen atom is spherically symmetric, so instead of using xyz coordinates, we make a change of basis and we go to spherical polar coordinates r theta phi and write our wave function as a function of r theta phi. And NLM again remind us that we are dealing with the NLM states. Now we factor our wave function as follows. Psi NLM of r theta phi is the product of r NL of r, which only depends on the radial coordinates, and YLM of theta phi, which depends on the angular coordinate. We call this the radial part of the wave function and this the angular part of the wave function. This angular part is the same for all spherically symmetric potentials, and there is a special name for this wave function. These are called spherical harmonics. You people are already familiar with these spherical harmonics. You know these by the name of orbitals. So you know there is an s orbital which is spherically symmetric, which gives the shape of the electron cloud around the nucleus. Then there are the 3 p orbitals which are double shaped. Then there are 5 d orbitals and so on. Finally, we look at the probability density. Psi NLM of r theta phi mod square is equal to r NL square, which is a real function, and YLM theta phi mod square. And the probability to find the particle in some volume element dV is now given as RNL square YLM mod square R square dr sin theta d theta d phi. We have to remember that the volume element in spherical polar coordinates is given by this expression. From here we can work out the probability, radial probability density, which is RNL square into R square. This tells us how far the electron is likely to be from the nucleus, and the angular distribution of electron around the nucleus is given by the angular probability